I was not a model student myself, unfortunately. When I came to college, I did struggle and I had those challenges. But I also found those people that were instrumental in helping to keep me engaged with my higher education journey.
I'm in it for the transformation that can take place, because when change happens, a ripple effect occurs, and it impacts families, communities, and future generations.
We want to see students come to our college and get the credential that they want and need to have to change their lives and their families' lives and their own trajectory.
For many, education's the bridge from, say, like their current state to their aspirational state. And I like to know that I had a hand in helping someone take a step towards, that future self.
Having AI at our disposal is all about meeting students where they are.
AI isn't about replacing the human side, but instead amplifying it.
It's able to take a lot of the redundancy out of the day-to-day of the admissions counselor work that a lot of time was ultimately dreaded.
That helps our team concentrate on complex problems when students call rather than answering simple questions.
I do what I do to open the doors of opportunities that may never have existed before, because those opportunities ultimately transform lives.
Visit element451.com and discover how a digital workforce can help empower your team to focus on what really matters.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to High School to Higher Ed, a father-daughter perspective, a special Pulse Check miniseries brought to you by Enrollify. I'm Kevin Cavanagh, an enrollment management professional for nearly 30 years.
And I'm Emma Cavanagh, his daughter, a 10th grader in the middle of high school. This series is about seeing the college admissions process through a different perspective, mine. We'll explore how young people are perceiving college and the messages we're getting from counselors, family, and colleges themselves. By stepping into these early conversations, we hope to offer some real insights for enrollment managers and marketers. Things you can't find in the data, but in real, everyday moments. Let's dive into today's episode.
How you doing, Emma?
Hi, Dad. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
And hello to all of our listeners.
This is the start of year 2, but season number 3 of our podcast, High School to Higher Ed. So we're very pleased that Enrollify has had us back for another season. We're really excited. And just for those folks who haven't listened to the podcast before, just to give some background on this, I always hear colleagues of mine who are VPs of enrollment or even faculty members or other administrators, they know the college process so well from the perspective of being a faculty member, an administrator, or an enrollment person, but they're brought to their knees as professionals when they go through it for the first time with their own son or daughter, because they see it from a different perspective. They're biting their tongue because they see what maybe other colleges are doing wrong, or they're biting their tongue because they think their son or daughter should be doing X, and when the son and daughter wants to do Y, and you can't be the professional, you have to be the parent. So with all these stories that I've heard from colleagues of mine, we decided that instead of waiting until you started your freshman year of college to then look back and say, this was the whole path that we followed from the beginning of your high school career, we said, let's capture it in a podcast every step of the way. So we banged out 6 episodes last year as you were a first-year student, a freshman in high school, and now we're kicking off 10th grade. So
Yep.
Let's sort of set the scene a little bit. First of all, 2 big things happened to you this summer. I would make the argument 3 things. I thought about this after the fact. So I'll give you the first thing that I think was exciting for you as a 15-year-old, and that's number 1, you finally got your braces off, right?
I did. Finally.
All right. So now you got this big, bright, beautiful smile that you've been so desperate to finally have. It looks great. I wish people could see the video. Well, maybe they'll take a look at your headshot on the header of the show. So to see that big, beautiful smile of yours. Second thing, what's the second thing that was big news for the Cavanagh family this summer?
The biggest.
Oh, Well, yeah, it depends on your perspective, I guess.
You got a dog.
We got a dog. All the years that we said we'd never get a dog or a cat, and yet here we are. Tell everybody about our new family member.
He's very cute, but I am biased, so.
Does he have a name, Emma?
His name's Oliver. He's currently 5 months old.
That's right. 5-month-old Cavapoo, who, in case you're ever wondering about getting a dog in your 50s after never having a dog before, in retrospect, it's probably not the smartest thing I've done, but he's very, very cute. He's just not the best coworker as I work much from home. But you love him, right?
Of course.
Right. So with all that aside, braces and dog, what we're really here to talk about is the third thing that happened for you this summer. So why don't you tell, other than spending some time at the beach, why don't you tell people what you did constructively this summer for 2 weeks?
Yes, so I went to the School of the New York Times for 2 weeks. It was on Fordham's Lincoln Center campus, and so I stayed in dorms. I was in a triple. My roommate was from Switzerland, and another was from Massachusetts. So it was definitely a wide spread of people, and I took a journalism course, but there were Model UN courses, food journalism, photojournalism, tons of different options.
That's great. So what we're really talking about today, and this wasn't originally planned as terms of a podcast episode, but that's another reason why we wanted to do it just as summer ended. But there's so much talk about pre-college programs and the value of pre-college programs in the college admissions process. And also I've observed of all my years being on college campuses that these summer programs and these pre-college programs are big money makers for colleges because their campuses lay pretty dormant during the summer months where they're not making money off of tuition, room and board and fees. So colleges spend a lot of time and energy promoting these summer semesters, these pre-college programs or otherwise, and they sell it as this is going to help you get into college. I don't know if that's always the case. We'll talk about some of the myths there. But also for you as exploring your passion, which is your journalism and being involved in a summer program that really dives into that. So that's what we're talking about here, the value of pre-college programs from the perspective of somebody that's actually recently gone through one. So tell us a little bit more, what caught your eye when we were thinking about this summer. You did some research on a number of different college programs, but you really are pre-college programs, but you really zoned in on the New York Times. So why don't you explain what caught your eye when you saw the School of the New York Times?
Well, I think when you hear the name the New York Times, especially as someone that's interested in journalism, it's very prestigious. And to think that I was taught by a journalist on the political beat as at the New York Times summer program. So it was just really cool to know that I was going to be taught by journalists themselves that are experienced. And I don't know, it just stood out to me.
Yeah. And from a parental perspective, it was nice because it was relatively close to home, because you were also looking at what's in programs in Washington, D.C. and Boston and otherwise. And this would have been your first time really, really away from home for any extended period of time, right? So
originally I wasn't planning to stay there.
Right. You were going to commute, which meant that I was going to commute. So I subtly and effectively convinced you that staying in the residence halls, as we call them in the business, not dorms, was a good idea. And I think it proved to be right?
Yes, I highly recommend.
Okay. And it was New York City, and you've got a thing for New York City.
I love New York.
Right. Everybody does. That's why they have the state logo. I love New York. So what was it like, before we dive into content, what was it like being away from home for 2 weeks in a big urban setting like that?
Well, I obviously missed my parents and my dog, but I was so busy. I was always doing something, and I made great friends, and I had a lot of fun in class. So I wasn't really homesick because I wasn't really thinking about it. So I missed you, but not that much.
So fast forward a few years when I tell you wherever you go to college to get involved and to join clubs and stay active, this is why, because the more active you are, the more you'll enjoy your college experience. But that's an episode for another day. So you were in class 3 hours a day, sometimes in the afternoon. So this was like very academic in nature. And you were actually, your two faculty members were actual real life journalists from the New York Times, correct?
The main instructor was a political journalist for the New York Times. And then we had I don't remember what they specifically called it, but it was a main instructor. And then not assistant, but she was less involved in teaching us, but she took us on our site visits and stuff like that. And she is a freelancer for the New York Times.
Right. So tell us about, and we talk about some of these, site visits. The one that really, as a parent, caught my attention, both good and bad, was you in Central Park, randomly walking up to people and interviewing them as part of the skills that you had to develop to just randomly walk up to strangers as a reporter and start asking them questions.
Yes. So our first day of class was Monday, and we just went to Central Park and kind of walked around and took observations. And then we went back the second day, and we had to go up to people and just ask them to interview. And part of the New York Times policy is that they always get age for people. And so we had to awkwardly ask them for their age, but it definitely taught me a lot. Now I'm more comfortable interviewing people.
Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Southeast Missouri State University needed to launch more targeted campaigns faster, yet they were bogged down by manual campaign builds, slow approvals, and vendor overload. With Element 451, they eliminated 5 vendor tools and gained marketing superpowers in one platform. They saw a 13% increase in applications, processed applications within 2 days, and achieved 33 to 35% email open rates. The impact: personalized, automated campaigns running at scale without the drag. Ready to turn your next campaign around in hours, not weeks? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents.
I couldn't believe that you were walking up to strangers in Central Park. I'm glad that you were doing it at 8 o'clock in the morning and not 8 o'clock at night. And then you mentioned earlier that on top of the academic and the immersion stuff, you did some fun stuff in New York City, but you also met people. You're sort of New Jersey centric, right? So you go to school in New Jersey, you do sports in New Jersey, and then we do vacations on the Jersey Shore. We've traveled to other parts of the world, but you're very New Jersey centric. And then here you are with a roommate from Massachusetts, a roommate from, where'd you say, Sweden or Switzerland?
Switzerland.
Right. So a roommate from Switzerland, and then people from all over the world came to this thing. So what was that like, interacting with students that were your age from all over the world, all with some level of interest in sort of journalism or New York City or otherwise, more like quote unquote your people, if you will, you know what I mean?
So my whole floor was people my age. So they were either going into their sophomore year or they were still 15 and they hadn't turned 16 yet. So on the first night that we got there, when we first moved in, the people across the hall from us came and knocked on our door and just said, we're your hallmates, and we all got introduced to each other. And that kind of started my big group of friends that we ended up making on our floor and on other floors too. So that was really fun. There were a lot of people from California, which surprised me because that's all the way across the country. But yeah, it was really fun. I met so many people.
So in terms of the broader conversation, there is a lot of criticism of pre-college programs if among people that are like school counselors encouraging students to go do these summer programs for trying to look good on college applications and get into college. And based on the conversations that you shared with me, it sounds like some students at the New York Times were kind of doing that they weren't passionate about the New York Times. They're not passionate about journalism, but they just kind of went. Maybe because they wanted to just give it a shot, or their parents wanted them to give it a shot, or they thought they were doing something to goose their application, resume. But then there were a lot of students like you that are very interested in this. So what's your take on it? When you spoke to people, is your sense that they were doing it for all the right reasons, or were there some people that were doing it for not necessarily wrong reasons, but just not to learn journalism?
Well, so there were a lot of courses outside of journalism. Like most of them, some of them were related to journalism, but they weren't the basics of journalism or anything like that. Some of them were photojournalism, and a lot of them there was law classes and Model UN classes and just like so many other things. But I think a lot of people were there because they wanted to be in New York, or they wanted to expose themselves to a certain thing maybe they hadn't been exposed to yet, or just some people were interested in journalism and those were the classes that they were taking. But I don't think many people that were taking the journalism courses weren't interested in journalism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough.
I don't think anyone was specifically there just for college. Like everyone loved the fact that they were in New York City for 2 weeks.
Oh, it's a bit of a draw.
Especially when you can look at roll over and see the New York City skyline.
Well, that's another pro tip. You were the first person in the room, so you got to
yes, get there early.
Would you recommend to other classmates of yours, like as they're starting to explore an academic passion or a geographic area, or just kind of getting a feel for college life, do you think that you walked away from this experience having a better, forget like, your resume for college is looking good. Do you think that you either learned about yourself, learned about residence hall life, learned about your academic interests, either confirming it or taking, did you get something out of it? And as a parent, I'm saying, please say yes, but generally, really seriously, like, do you feel that this was beneficial as you not try to think about applying for college, but think about what you want to do in college and what you want to do after you get out of college?
Yes, I learned so much. I learned so much about journalism because, of course, my journalism class is great and it gives me experience, but the teacher is an English teacher. She's not, I love my journalism teacher, but she's not a journalist. Like, she's never worked for the New York Times. And my teacher has works for the New York Times, and he was giving me advice about how to structure things and to get rid of certain things. And it was just really interesting to see what he had to say and how it like kind of differed from what I learned at school. And then I learned you have to put yourself out there when it comes to living in a dorm where you don't know anyone, and it worked out well. So I learned a lot.
That's great. And you went into this thinking that you only wanted to go to school in a big city. After taking the New York City subway during a heat wave and not having your, Metro card working properly and having to talk your way onto New York City buses and getting the bus driver to allow you to, onto the bus, even though things didn't work. Like, you learned some street smarts. Even after all those episodes, you still, think you want to go to school in a big city?
Even more.
By way of journalism and your passion, it was an affirmative experience. Yet, despite some of the craziness of New York City during the summertime and mass transit and heat waves and otherwise, it affirms some things for you. And living away from your wonderful parents and your dog, who we apologize was barking a few times during this podcast in the background, you're pretty cool with being away from home for 2 weeks without any homesickness or anything. So this was an affirming experience for you.
Yes.
Was there any negatives, anything that you wish were different, or any surprises of any of the above that disappointed you in any way?
I really enjoyed it. I had so much fun. I was hoping for an earlier class time because I didn't have much to do from 6:30 to 9:30. All of the planned events started at 5, and then during the first 3 days, we had planned events every single night that were required. And so it was kind of difficult to do that and get back to my dorm, kind of reset, and then go to those things right at 5. But then once it was more free, it was a lot easier.
It's called time management, Emma. You get used to it.
And then I also had deadlines every night for stories that I had to write, and it was kind of difficult to have a late start time because I ended late, so then I did all my events late. And our curfew was 10, so then I worked from 10 to 11 because 11 was the deadline every night to pretty much finish my article. But I did it every single night.
Yeah, now you know what it's like to be a reporter on deadline and live your life as well. Any final thoughts about pre-college programs? So you'd recommend it to others to do it? Would you do it again or something similar if you were given the opportunity?
Yes.
All right.
I plan on it.
Oh, good. I guess I got to start saving my money. So speaking of, in terms of the college admissions process, but sort of like one final thought, there's this prevailing thought that it's unfair if colleges take these summer programs into account in the admissions process, because students that have parents that are willing to pay or have access get to do these things, and other students that don't are left out. You seem to have had a good experience for your own purposes, but what's your thought on the idea that these could be helpful to you in the college admissions process? Do you think that's fair, unfair? How do you think this plays out in your mind in terms of equity of the college admissions process?
If it helps me a little bit just to show continued interest in what I'm doing, that's fair, but it shouldn't count against someone for not doing one. But I think in terms of I wasn't really necessarily doing it for college. I was doing it to get the experience. And I think getting a dorm experience and a living away from home experience before you go to college is really important. So I think if you are able to, you should do it. And if you can't, there's obviously so many other things that you can do over the summer that are super cool as well.
Well, great. We'll worry about next summer in a few months' time. But right now, you've got to get ready and lay out your clothes because you start your 10th grade tomorrow in just a few hours. So thank you, everyone, for being with us for another season. Stay tuned. We have a bunch of other really great episodes lined up for the fall and for the spring as we dive into this whole college search and college experience. Tune in next week as the next episode drops. But until then, have a great week. And Emma, let's make like a tree and get out of here.
Let's make like a tree and leave, you idiot.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for listening.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.